Hey, everybody. Welcome to the 10-Minute Church Marketing Podcast. Today, we're talking about email marketing, and I want to just go ahead and dive right in. All right, guys. So for your email marketing, we've talked about this a little bit in the past. We've talked about your email marketing when it comes to follow-up or when it comes to first-time guests, which is part of follow-up, I know, but we've talked about email marketing some in the past. But today I want to dive into 4 different areas that will help you in your email marketing. And I'm going to try and keep it under 10 minutes. I never get to, but I'm going to try today. So let's start off with the first part is building your list. That seems like the natural place to start. It seems like where you have to start to email market. Really, you can start sending out emails with a tiny list. If you have 2 people on your list, send them emails. If they want them, great. If they don't, well, then you've lost your list. But you can build up your list from different ways. And odds are you already have a huge list, and huge being comparative to your church size. So if you have a church of 100 people, and you probably have a list of 75 or more. And we're going to go over ways to build your list and where you can find those emails first. So first off, you build your list through guests. So anytime a guest comes in the door, you want to try and get their email. Now, it doesn't happen every time. In fact, a lot of times you won't get it, especially the first time. It takes 1, 2, 3, whatever times for them to actually give you information because they need to see the value in the information that they're giving you, why they want to give you information. So a lot of times you'll see churches, if you don't already do this, you'll see churches that give a guest gift. And most often the biggest reason for this, yes, we want to thank them for coming in. But the real reason that we want to give them a gift is to get their information so we can help connect them. It's just a connection point. So in a way, you are buying their information. I know that sounds could even sound a little bit crass, but we're giving them something and they see enough value in that thing to give us something in return, which is their information. So with their information having been taken, we can then begin to add them to our list. And a little bit later, I'm going to talk about how to use that information correctly so it's not a really spammy transaction. So try different ways to get all the information you can from your guests. That can include things like comment cards or communication cards. Events, social media. Those are all ways to get information. There's all kinds of other ways. It depends on what you're doing. So if you are using your communication cards as a primary source to get information, communication cards typically have multiple functions. First, it's your guests. It's to identify your guests and maybe what they're interested in. Next, it is to help people take their next steps. So for instance, if on your communication card you say, you have a line that says, check here if you want to get baptized, check here if you want to find a group, check here if you want to, whatever. The list goes on. That will... in that, you also can ask for their information. And then it also serves to have people update their information. So people's phone numbers change, their email addresses change, and you want to try and keep as up to date as possible. And every once in a while from the stage, you might want to say, hey, if you have been going here for a while and you need to, your phone number's changed and your email has changed and you want to keep getting information from us, we would love for you to take that communication card, fill it out, and update your information. We'll get that input and whatever. So communication cards are super powerful for next steps for guests and for information updates. The other thing is events. So events are a really great way to gather information because events invite things like raffles or, for instance, if you have like a fall fest and you have rides and you might have a tent out front to require people to give their information to sign in, whatever, to get tickets. They can all be free, but you have them sign in, and that can help with attendance numbers. That can help with some other kind of demographics and metrics, and you get a lot of information out of that. But at the very least, you'll get information about your events. Again, in a few minutes here, I'm going to talk about how to use this information properly because the old shotgun blast approach does not work. It will just not go well for you. So Events open up things. You can do raffles. You can do specific signups. You could do everything. I mean, there's unlimited things. Whatever you can think of to grab that information. The next thing is social media. So on Facebook, it's a rather new thing, but on Facebook, I say new. It's been around for a while, but it's newer, and a lot of churches don't do it. It's called a lead generation tool or lead gathering tool. And so Facebook will actually create a form so your people can fill out a form directly from your Facebook page. And the reason why that's great is because people tend to not want to navigate too many places. So if they're already on your Facebook page, you don't want to make them go to your website to do something, because odds are it's not going to happen. It's a very low return rate. It's called a conversion rate is what we're talking about here. And the conversion rate's a lot lower when they have to go from one site to another site. Any kind of barriers, people will find a reason not to do it. So social media, that's one way to do it. You can have them DM you. In fact, there are even ad campaigns that focus on getting people to message you. Any kind of way to get the information like that. You cannot pull people's email addresses from Instagram or YouTube or TikTok or anything like that. You can't just go on there. Oh, these people follow me. Let me download their email addresses. That doesn't work that way. It's a privacy issue. You will never get that. But you can ask for it. And whenever you're asking for an email, whenever you're asking for information, there has to be some sort of quid pro quo. What I mean is, you don't necessarily have to give them anything physical, but they have to believe that what you will give them, either it's content or it's connection, whatever you're giving them needs to be worth it to them. So you have to make it worth it to them. If you just say, hey, give me your email address. Well, why? Well, I just want to send you a bunch of emails. What about? Oh, I don't know yet. Maybe I'll send you an email about our senior adult meetings. Well, I'm 23 years old. It's not worth it to them, and they're not just going to hand it to you. So you need to make sure that what you're giving them is worth it. So the last thing on building your email list, in fact, this is probably going to have to be a multiple part series. So, here we go. The last thing on building your list is your church database. If you do not have a church database, get one immediately. If you have a church directory, I know a lot of older churches, the church I grew up in had a church directory where they actually had a physical book that people would pick up, and it has people's pictures. And if you have one of those, great. That's your church directory. That's your church database. You can use that information. Now, when it comes to emails, there are some gray areas. If somebody gives you their email, you are allowed to use it unless they have said, do not use this. So it's not a great practice to grab emails and not tell them you're going to start emailing them. You really want to get emails, and this is specifically for email marketing, but it works the same for texting and all that. You really want to get emails from people who want to receive your stuff. They need to know that you're getting it. But if you're just starting out and you have a church database, what I recommend is doing what's called an opt-in. And if you have an online form for people filled out, a lot of times it's called a double opt-in. And what that means is you already have their email address, and you send them an email saying, hey, I just want to make sure that this information is stuff that you want to get. Click here to confirm. That's all it takes. And what that does is, first of all, your email provider, the one that you send out emails through, whether it's MailChimp, maybe it's Outlook, whatever it is, it will qualify that person. It will qualify that lead, so that when you do send them emails, and let's say they get angry or they leave the church or whatever, and they say, oh, well, this is spam. I never asked for this. Well, they can do that on any email. MailChimp's can be like, hey, you spammed this person. You say, no, I didn't. Look, this is there, and this is the double opt-in that they did. And then they will realize, oh, no, that's not the problem. So anyways, start off using your church database. Now, you need to be very careful here, because if you have used your church database in the past and people have opted out and said and they have unsubscribed from your emails, it is actually illegal to send them emails, and it can cost you up to $40,000 per email sent to an unsubscribed email address. It's called the CAN Spam Act, CANN Spam Act. You can go look it up for all the rules. typically you're not going to get, it's not going to be hey, you did it once. The FBI is not looking out for that. It's really if it's just reported, and if it's reported, they will follow up with it. So just be careful with that. You don't want to get into that kind of issue. If they've unsubscribed, don't send them anything. That's not only the law, it's also good practice, good business practice, because if they don't want your stuff, don't waste your time sending it to them. If they want it, they'll subscribe to it later, and that's okay. So that is, I guess this is part one. I'm going to keep going because I'm going to split this up into multiple parts, however long it takes. But building your list is so important, and it is not very difficult to do. You have people coming in your building every week, whether it's your current members or new guests. You have people coming to you every week. So find ways to gather that information, not so you can as a church. It's not so you can be selfish and be like, oh, I have all this huge email list, or I can make all this money now. You're not trying to. It's all about connection, and it's all about creating those connection points. And email marketing, if done correctly, is still super powerful. It's a super powerful tool that you need to use. Thanks for joining us on the 10-Minute Church Marketing Podcast. We're going to have part 2 next week. You don't want to miss it. We're going to be talking about the rest of email marketing. See you then.